Prohibition in the United States. A sobering look at the ban on alcohol. Prohibition in the United States, also known as the Noble Experiment, was a period from 1920 to 1933 during which the production, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages were banned. This monumental social experiment was driven by various social, moral, and political factors, and it had profound consequences on American society. This essay will provide an in-depth exploration of Prohibition, examining its origins, motivations, implementation, and ultimate repeal, as well as its lasting impact on American culture and legislation. The origins and motivations of Prohibition. 1. Temperance movement. The roots of Prohibition can be traced back to the early 19th century and the emergence of the temperance movement. Concerned with the adverse effects of alcohol abuse on individuals, families, and society, temperance advocates campaigned for moderation and sobriety. The movement gained momentum as it shifted from advocating for reduced alcohol consumption to the total prohibition of alcoholic beverages. 2. Social and moral concerns. Prohibitionists believed that alcohol was a destructive force in American society. They cited a range of social problems attributed to alcohol, including domestic violence, crime, poverty, and absenteeism from work. Many also framed Prohibition as a moral crusade, viewing it as a way to eliminate what they saw as sinful behavior. 3. Progressive-era reforms. Prohibition was part of a broader wave of progressive-era reforms in the early 20th century. Progressives sought to address social and economic problems through government intervention and regulation. Prohibition was seen as a way to promote public health, reduce crime, and improve social conditions. The implementation of Prohibition. 1. The 18th Amendment. The 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified on January 16, 1919, and enacted on January 17, 1920, prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages. This marked the beginning of the Prohibition era. 2. The Volstead Act. To enforce the 18th Amendment, Congress passed the National Prohibition Act, commonly known as the Volstead Act. This act defined the terms of prohibition and established penalties for violations. It also allowed for the sale of certain medicinal and industrial alcohols. 4. Moonshine and homemade alcohol. In rural areas, homemade alcohol, commonly referred to as moonshine, became prevalent. Individuals and small-scale producers began distilling their own spirits, sometimes with dangerous consequences, as poorly made moonshine could be toxic. 5. The role of prohibition agents. Prohibition agents were tasked with enforcing the ban on alcohol. However, they faced numerous challenges, including widespread public opposition, corruption, and the sheer scale of illegal alcohol production and distribution. The impact of Prohibition. 1. Rise of organized crime. Prohibition provided a lucrative opportunity for organized crime syndicates to profit from the illegal alcohol trade. Gangsters like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano became infamous for their involvement in bootlegging and speakeasies. The era witnessed a surge in violence and criminal activity. 2. Public opposition. Many Americans, particularly in urban areas, were critical of Prohibition. The ban on alcohol was seen as an infringement on personal freedoms, and public sentiment shifted toward a desire for its repeal. Prohibition also faced resistance from law enforcement officials who were sympathetic to the cause. 3. Economic consequences. The prohibition of alcohol had significant economic consequences. The brewing industry, which had been a major employer, suffered job losses and economic hardship. Tax revenue from alcohol sales, which had previously funded government programs, dried up. 4. Impact on law enforcement. Prohibition placed a tremendous burden on law enforcement agencies. The pursuit of illegal alcohol producers and distributors strained resources and diverted attention from other criminal activities. Corruption within law enforcement agencies was not uncommon. 5. Cultural and social shifts. The Prohibition era brought about cultural and social changes. Speakeasies became centers of social life, jazz music flourished, and a new ethos of rebellion and non-conformity emerged. The "Roaring Twenties" is often associated with this period of social upheaval and experimentation. The repeal of Prohibition. 1. Changing public opinion. Public opinion gradually shifted against Prohibition. The economic hardships of the Great Depression, coupled with the ongoing problems associated with the ban on alcohol, eroded support for the policy. Critics argued that Prohibition had failed to achieve its intended goals and had instead created more problems. 2. The 21st Amendment. In 1933, the 21st Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, repealing the 18th Amendment and effectively ending Prohibition. This marked the first and only time in American history that a constitutional amendment was repealed by another. 3. The impact of repeal. With the repeal of Prohibition, legal alcohol sales resumed. Many breweries and distilleries, which had been dormant for over a decade, returned to business. The government also introduced alcohol regulation through the establishment of the Alcohol Control Administration. The legacy of Prohibition. 1. Alcohol regulation. The end of Prohibition led to the implementation of various regulations on the production, sale, and distribution of alcohol. State-level control systems and alcohol age limits were established, which continue to shape alcohol policy in the United States. 2. Organized crime. Prohibition significantly bolstered the power and influence of organized crime. Although the end of Prohibition saw a decline in the illegal alcohol trade, criminal syndicates diversified into other illicit activities, including gambling and narcotics, maintaining their grip on criminal enterprises. 3. Social and cultural impact. Prohibition left an enduring mark on American culture. The era of speakeasies, jazz music, and flappers became emblematic of the 1920s. The cultural shifts and new attitudes toward rebellion and personal freedom continued to influence American society. 4. Lessons for policy. Prohibition serves as a historical lesson on the consequences of attempting to legislate morality and regulate personal behavior through government intervention. The policy's failures and unintended consequences underscore the importance of considering the practical implications of legislation and the potential for resistance and backlash. Prohibition in the United States was a complex and controversial experiment in social and moral reform. It emerged from a confluence of social concerns, moral crusades, and political agendas. The ban on alcohol had far-reaching consequences, giving rise to organized crime, changing cultural norms, and ultimately leading to its own repeal. The legacy of Prohibition continues to influence American attitudes toward alcohol regulation, personal freedom, and the role of government in shaping societal behavior. It stands as a testament to the challenges and complexities of enacting and enforcing sweeping social policies.